Shields up, Iron Breakers. We're kind of here coming at you with another gameplay first impressions video, and today we're going to be taking a look at Pokemon Sun and Moon for the 3DS. This title was sent to me by Nintendo so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. And right now in the video, you guys should probably be watching me unbox the Lunala figurine as well as the game case and inserting it into the 3DS, because I just thought it'd be cool to share with you guys, because I got the little cool figurine and I just went ahead and did a full unboxing. It's a fairly simple unboxing, though, because there's nothing too special inside the case other than the game itself, but might as well do the whole thing, right? Anyway, before we get started on my opinions of Sun and Moon, I'd like to give you guys some background on my experience in the Pokemon universe, so to speak, because I never really played the original Pokemon games on the Game Boy or the Game Boy Advance or the Game Boy Color or even the DS itself. And I've never really watched the anime, so you can't really call me a hardcore Pokemon fan by any stretch. Matter of fact, I didn't really care much for Pokemon until I decided to invest some time into it so that me and Hengis could work on a project over on the Squadron side. So in order for us to get started with that project, I started playing Pokemon Y earlier this year. Played a little bit of that, and then eventually started playing Omega Ruby, which some of you guys might have watched that over on Squadron. I was the one playing, and Hengis was kind of like my trainer, so to speak. He was the expert on all things Pokemon, so he would be like telling me how certain mechanics work and whatnot. Because let's face it, Pokemon is not necessarily for newcomers, so to speak. At least the older Pokemon games were not necessarily the easiest thing to get into, and having someone actually telling me about the specific mechanics, the counters, all this other stuff was pretty cool. Now, you can look a lot of that stuff up online, of course, but you can't like really look specifics for every single thing or how debuffs work and all that stuff. So, learning that way was actually pretty interesting to me, and I started becoming interested in the Pokemon universe. So that's why I wanted to tell you guys my opinions on Sun and Moon. I've actually had the game since last week, but I only really had time to play yesterday. But I still wanted to give you guys just my first impressions of what I've played so far of the game, and particularly putting it into context with my experience of Pokemon Y and Pokemon Omega Ruby, which were the two other Pokemon titles that I've played at this point. So the very first thing I'd like to mention about Sun and Moon is that, in my opinion, it is the most accessible Pokemon game that I've ever played. Again, I've only played like 3 of them up until this point, so I can't really talk about earlier entries in the franchise or whatnot. But like, when I'm talking about accessibility, what I'm saying is like this is probably the easiest Pokemon to get into. And I don't mean that as in this Pokemon is easier from a difficulty standpoint. I mean, the game does a much better job of explaining itself and explaining the different mechanics, and not relying on the player to just go online and look up all different Pokemons and look up the weaknesses and the elemental, the elemental weaknesses, like, oh, you should use fire to attack grass types because they burn and they take extra damage, or you should use lightning to attack water types or flying types and all that stuff. Instead of relying on the player to do that kind of legwork and understand all of those different mechanics, or being forced even to memorize them, the game does a much better job of showing those mechanics to the player. So, for instance, say you are going into a combat for the very first time, and you do an attack that happens to be super effective on a certain Pokemon. You will notice that the next time you fight that Pokemon, then you go through your list of attacks, it will actually show underneath the attack itself, like, this attack is super effective, but you have to do the experiment first. Now, I know that some players are going to be like, because there's a lot of really hardcore Pokemon players, and they're going to be like, I don't need the game to tell me that fire is supposed to be used against grass. I know all that by head. It's like, but you need to understand, not everybody knows all that by head, and it's very nice that there's, a game in the Pokemon franchise that is trying to be more accessible and not kind of like forcing players to memorize all of these different affinities, particularly because there's so goddamn many of them, let's be honest. So that right there was a big plus in my book. On top of it, there's also There's also a display on the bottom screen whenever you're in a fight, so that whenever the debuffs start flying out, you don't have to keep track. Okay, so he's growled at me 3 times. That means that, my attack has been lowered 3 times. You don't have to keep track of that. You can actually just press each of the Pokemon, and it will show you all of the debuffs and all of the buffs that they currently have. If they have, for instance, Pump Up or whatever, I forget the name of that ability. It's called Focus or something. If he has the increased critical chance, if he has how much upticks of attack he has, all that stuff, everything is shown in the combat itself. And again, that for me, it was just a breath of fresh air, because I didn't really, when I started playing Y and Omega Ruby, I would almost, not Omega Ruby, because I was playing Omega Ruby with Hengist, so I could always just ask him. But when I was playing Y by myself, I felt a lot of the times that I would have to, I'm fighting a psychic type. What the fuck's the weakness of that? I would go online, and I would start looking. I would grab the chart so that I could see, okay, this attack's going to deal 1.5 damages. It's not fun to have to go outside of the game and to look stuff up, right? I much prefer this approach to it, where just like experimenting with different attacks and whatnot to figure out what works. And I think that is a much more fun way to do it and to keep you in the game itself. Now, beyond these accessibility things, there's plenty more accessibility things that I could talk about, but I don't want to go too, I don't want to just like harp on this for half an hour, because you guys know that I have a tendency to ramble. A couple of other things that I've noticed: the visuals have obviously been improved. They look much better now than they did in previous games. I feel the animations have also received a significant step up, which has also led to much better cinematics. And I've only played I think I'm like 5-6 hours in, something like that, which is barely scratching the surface. But the cinematics also look significantly better. Unfortunately, I can't really show you any of them because spoilers and all that stuff. Something that I've also noticed, which I'm not sure other people will notice or not, but I never really felt too attached to the soundtrack in previous Pokemon games. Whereas in this one, for some reason, the soundtrack just kind of gels with me much more than it has done in the past. To top that off with all these improved visuals and cinematics and animations and the soundtrack, the whole island theme around this particular Pokemon title, it just feels really good. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just need a vacation or something. Maybe I myself need to go to a tropical island somewhere, spend some days in the sun, but it almost feels like a vacation, because you're in this paradise island and you're just like hanging out and catching your pokes and whatever. And I don't know, I like this theme more than I like the theme on the previous titles. Personal thing, I don't know. Another thing with this one, and this was a big thing for me, like a huge thing. I know that most Pokemon, most really hardcore Pokemon people won't care about this kind of stuff, but I still think it's important because this is what is going to bring new players into the franchise. And that is the fact that you now have a much better freedom of movement just for exploration and whatnot. Whereas in the previous titles, you had the 8 directional movement, at least for Y and Omega Ruby. From what I could tell, you could only move in 8 directions, which is not true analog movement that you're used to in a third-person game, or even a top-down, isometric, whatever the hell you want to call it. Nowadays, you're used to having full directional movement because that's just what video games have gone down to, and people just kind of expect that kind of freedom of movement when you're playing a game like this. And having that and noticing that the second I stepped outside that house for the very first time, I was just like, no way. Is it actually like that? Because I wouldn't even expect Pokemon to do something like that at this point, and it just felt great. Which also means that you can now explore to your heart's content, and the whole exploration game just feels way better. Now, to top it off, they're also giving you the Rotom Dex thing, which is your new Pokedex. It's got like a Pokemon imbued in it. I don't really understand the whole technology behind it. It's like some kind of electric type Pokemon stuck inside of a Pokedex, and your Pokedex becomes all special and whatnot. And one of the cool things about it is that it shows the next place that you're supposed to go in your quest instead of having you guess, oh, I'm supposed to go over here. So, for instance, if you don't play the game for a while, which would sometimes happen in between our Omega Ruby sessions because we would have other projects in the squadron, we would have to put that on hold. And then when we came back, me and Hengist would be like talking to each other for like 15 minutes trying to figure out what the fuck, what are we supposed to do now? Because, like, I can't remember where we left off last time, and I don't know what we're going to do. So having that map constantly tell you where you're supposed to go is good for two reasons. One, so that you can pick right back up wherever you left off. Two, so that if you want to explore stuff, you will know when the next story beats, not when, but where the next story beat starts, so that you can do all the exploration that you want and not just randomly run into a story event by mistake, which for someone like me who likes to explore, likes to try and catch as many pokes as possible in one zone, even just for collecting purposes, because I have OCD. You guys know, you've seen this in Dark Souls. I see the shiny, I need the shiny. It's kind of the same thing in Pokemon. I'm thinking, I heard this particular Pokemon here, I need to get it. So there's that. Again, exploration feels way better in this one. Again, this is a personal thing. You guys need to understand that everything that I'm talking about in this video is a personal opinion. I'm not stating as a fact the exploration is better. I'm telling you, I feel the exploration is better than it's been in previous titles. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the fact that the trainer is present in the actual Pokemon battles. It makes me feel that I'm much more immersed into the game, than my character has much more agency than he had in. I mean, obviously it's a cosmetic thing, it's a visual thing. From a gameplay standpoint, it doesn't really do anything special, but it feels better just to watch the trainer behind the Pokemon actually like telling him, do this, do that, do the thing, throw in the Pokeball, instead of just having, whenever two pokes are fighting, just having the two pokes there and not having your trainer show up, which goes hand in hand with something that I really enjoyed right at the start of this one, which was character customization. Now, if I remember correctly, in Y, you could buy clothing and you can buy different hats and stuff like that, but in Omega Ruby, I don't think you could actually do it, or if you could, I never found the shop where you could do character customization. Hengist was telling me that you couldn't do it, so I don't know if that's the case or not. But I never really found the shop to do customization stuff in Omega Ruby. And in here, like very at the start of the game, very early in the game, one of the characters like gives you a pair of contact lenses, and that allows you to change the color of your eyes, which personally, since I have green eyes, I always like my characters in video games to have green eyes as well. So being able to do that was cool. And then to top it off, immediately after, something that I've wanted to put in my Pokemon characters as well is a different hat. Not necessarily something like looks like that, but just, that looks like this, but a hat that is somewhat similar to it. And again, in the other Pokemon titles, never able to do that. In this one, first store I'm up, I'm just like, there's a friggin' hat in here, sweet. So I got the hat. I changed some of the colors on the clothes and whatnot, just basic stuff. But these are things that, for players that aren't super hardcore into the Pokemon franchise, these are things that are going to keep these players in, because it gives them more investment onto their characters. Again, personal opinion. It seems that in this title, instead of having the Mega Evolutions, I'm not going to get into a little bit of combat. I mean, mostly going to talk about the Z moves, but it's like, this is where my experience is extremely limited, and you should take anything that I say with a grain of salt. But it seems that in Sun and Moon, instead of having the Mega Evolutions, you have the Z moves. And the Z moves, it's actually interesting to me, because it almost feels like your Pokemon are powering up Dragon Ball style. They just become Super Saiyan, and then the next move that they do is just absolute bonkers. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I think it might even be better than the Super Evolution, because Super Evolution, it always seems like it was hard to balance. I mean, I've always heard concerns of balance between my friends that actually play Pokemon pretty hardcore. They were always telling me like, oh man, this particular Mega is insane and does this thing and does that thing, and I don't know. And the Z move seems like it'll be easier to balance, but because it will still have the attack attributes to it. So the way the Z moves work is you get crystal and you get like I mean, I've heard people call it a ring, but it looks more like a bracelet, so I don't know. It's like a Z bracelet that your trainer wears on his wrist. You get one of those early on, and then you're going to get a crystal that you can. It's going to be associated with a specific affinity or an element. So the first one that you get is going to be the normal. So any normal attack you can power up into a Z normal attack. So tackle becomes, what was the name of it? Something unstoppable blitz or whatever it was. And the animation is obviously way cooler and it deals way more damage, but it requires that your Pokemon have normal attacks in order to use that specific one. So if you want to do it with a fire Pokemon, you're going to have to get the Fire Z Crystal thing, which just so happens that my starter was Litten, so I have 2 fire attacks, and the only normal attack I had on him was Leer. So I thought that like the Z thing would give me, this is going to give me the special Z attack. It's like, no, it's just a more powerful version of Leer, which was, needless to say, very anticlimactic. It's like your character does this crazy pose and he's like, oh, Z, and you almost see this aura, almost like friggin' Dragon Ball aura of Super Saiyan, and then suddenly it's just your little Pokemon just does a little Leer animation. I was like, what? But yeah, if you do with normal attacks, obviously it becomes way cooler. I've done it shortly after with a Slowpoke, did the Unstoppable Blitz or whatever the hell it is, and just pretty much trampled. I think it was a Spearow. Yeah, that Spearow did not have a good time. He just got trampled by a friggin' Z move for no real reason other than just get trampled. Another thing is the Pokemon refresh thing, which I thought was interesting, because the previous Pokemon games had the Ami thing where you had to like give stuff to your Pokemon to earn their affection, and it was never something that I really got that into. And this one has the version that this one has of that is the Pokemon refresh, which you can do at any time. You can pet your Pokemon, you can feed them the beans, give them all that stuff and gain affection from them. But if you're the kind of player that doesn't care that much about that kind of stuff like me, it's interesting that sometimes after a fight, they'll give you the chance to do that. And so instead of me focusing on doing that manually to earn affection from the pokes, what I end up doing is I just use it at the end of combat whenever they suggest that I do it. And so the game kind of, again, it goes into that whole accessibility thing, making things better for you. And to top it off, sometimes if you do this Pokemon refresh thing, you might be able to cure status ailments. So say for instance your poke has Paralyze, you'll be able to get rid of Paralyze by doing the Pokemon refresh thing at the end of a battle. So that's pretty cool. Saves you some potions, saves you some berries. So all that stuff seems pretty fun to me. And then finally, the one last thing that I wanted to mention is that instead of gyms, I'm not sure, did I mention this? I don't think I mentioned this in the video yet, but instead of gyms in this iteration of Pokemon, you are going to go through the Island Challenge, which you actually have to go to specific captains, Pokemon captains, whatever they are, and they will give you specific tasks for you to do. And then once you complete those tasks, you will have to fight like a totem Pokemon, which is a much bigger and more powerful version of Pokemon that you've seen already. And that Pokemon can call allies in, so it becomes like a 2v1 fight against a boss, which actually feels like a proper boss fight, whereas doing gyms usually felt, to me at least, a lot easier, because you would know, oh, this is a fire gym. Guess what? I'm coming in with a bunch of water pokes, and I'm going to kill you. And it's not going to be that hard. Or this is a lightning gym. I'm going to come in with, oh yeah, that's what I did. In the friggin' lightning gym, I went in there with the evolution of Golem Graveler. I went in there with Graveler, and they did not have a good time. Oh man, just reminding that playthrough, that was so much fun. But yeah, I kind of feel that island challenges are going to be a little bit more refreshing to people who have been doing these gym-based challenges throughout their entire Pokemon play experience. And so I think it's a good thing. Eventually we'll see. My plan right now is to do a live stream next Friday, which is when the spoiler embargo lifts. I'm going to avoid going too deep into spoilers. We're probably going to stay close to the start of the game on Friday. So if you guys want to join in then to watch some more gameplay, where I will actually be presenting more gameplay, because here we're still limited by embargoes and whatnot, so I can only show you guys little bits of gameplay in between the video. But on Friday, I'll be able to showcase just as much as I want. So if you guys want to check that out, then make sure to tune into the channel. Then I will be live streaming around 6 a.m. PST, 2 p.m. GMT. So hopefully you guys will tune in. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, if it helped you in any way, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.